As a kid, I was alone a lot. Now, don't worry, I wasn't abandoned on the steps of an orphanage or anything, but growing up, I had no siblings and my mom often worked, which meant I had to find ways to entertain myself. Naturally, this led to me constructing massive campaigns and political wars between my Lego minifigs, always watching Lilo and Stitch, and grinding my Wii or my DS till my eyes hurt.
We would like to play.
Out of all the games that I played, the one that had completely consumed me was Super Mario Galaxy. Being 5 when it came out meant many game overs and many complaints to my mom to help me get a certain star or defeat a boss battle, which she always gleefully did, so thanks, Mom. But while my peanut-sized brain didn't understand most of the game's mechanics or movement, there was something that I did understand. How it made me feel. Something about it just made me feel alone. Like I truly was floating through the galaxy. Just me, Mario, and the stars. All that to say, Galaxy meant a lot to me as a child. And it still does. I can't help but feel this nostalgic euphoria every time I hear a melody from the score or use a sound effect in one of our videos. Clearly, this game had an impact on me. So when I heard the news that a Super Mario movie was being made, I couldn't help but get excited for the inevitable Galaxy film that would follow. I knew revisiting that memory in a theater with stellar visuals, a booming reprise score, and a greater focus on narrative could quite possibly make me ascend. But as time went on, my excitement slowly faded. And the reason why actually has nothing to do with Super Mario Galaxy itself. Actually, to understand why my expectations for a Galaxy movie have dropped so much, you first need to understand why they were so high in the first place. Because Super Mario Galaxy isn't just another Mario game. It's one of the most emotionally unique experiences Nintendo has ever created. And that's exactly what makes adapting it so difficult. So let's dive into what makes Super Mario Galaxy so special, and why any film adaptation would have almost impossible shoes to fill. But before we do, make sure you leave a like on the video, and for more movie content, subscribe to the Cinemajors. While sharing some similarities with previous Mario installments, Super Mario Galaxy is set apart by 3 key elements. Like most Mario games, the story is fairly bare bones and linear. Mario and the crew are celebrating the Star Festival, a celebration that takes place once every century as a special star passes by the Mushroom Kingdom. Meanwhile, Jack Black hasn't had his fix of home wrecking in a couple weeks, so naturally he's got to commit terrorism. Mario gets launched into deep space, Peach is abducted, yada yada. Pretty standard stuff. But it's what comes after this that stands out. The player is introduced to this quiet little moment. And with a soft chime, the camera pans out to reveal the small but isolated planet that Mario finds himself on. From here, the player meets the first Luma, a cute little star that helps guide Mario and grants him his newest ability, the spin. The same Luma also leads Mario to one of the game's most important new characters, Rosalina. Rosalina is introduced in this radiant, almost ethereal light. And from here, Mario discovers that she is the keeper of the Comet Observatory, an intergalactic space station that acts as the main hub for Mario and the friends he meets throughout his journey. Rosalina asks Mario to help bring the lost Lumas back home. Once enough of them return, the observatory can regain its power and Mario can travel to Bowser's location at the center of the universe to save Peach. So yes, on paper, the story isn't really pushing any narrative boundaries. But what makes Galaxy stand apart is that it also hides a completely optional storyline that the player can unlock over time. As Mario restores power to the Comet Observatory, the player can unlock a much more hidden narrative that takes the form of Rosalina reading to the Lumas. And this is where Galaxy quietly reveals that it has far more on its mind than the average Mario game. The story follows a little girl who, one night, finds a small, injured Luma in the woods. She takes care of it, and the two quickly become close. But as time passes, the Luma begins longing to return to its mother. So, the girl sets out on a journey across the universe to help it find its home. Along the way, the story becomes less about adventure and more about grief, loneliness, and growing up. As the girl waits and searches, hoping to finally reunite the Luma with its mother, she slowly realizes that the things she has lost may never return. In helping this little star find its family, she is forced to confront the pain of losing her own. The loneliness she feels cannot be undone. But over time, that loneliness begins to transform. Through her care for the Lumas, the girl finds a new sense of purpose. What begins as a story about loss slowly becomes a story about healing, about building a new home after losing an old one, about turning loneliness into compassion. And by the end, it becomes clear that this little girl is Rosalina herself. It's a surprisingly emotional story, especially for a game that, on the surface, is just Italian goes to space. But that contrast is exactly what makes it so powerful. Hidden inside this bright, whimsical platformer is a story about mourning, purpose, and found family. Another aspect that makes Galaxy unique is the gameplay. Once again, the standard Mario formula is here, but it's being expanded in a genuinely creative way. The game's defining feature is its gravity mechanic. Mario can leap across tiny planets, run upside down, and fling himself through space in ways that completely reshape how platforming feels. And while controlling all of this on the Wii can be a little finicky at times, the core idea is so inventive that it more than makes up for it. With that one mechanic, Galaxy opens an entirely new style of level design. Suddenly, platforming is no longer just about moving left to right or climbing upward. It becomes about momentum, orientation, and learning how to navigate spaces that bend and curve around you. And the game keeps building on that idea with new planets, new power-ups, and new mechanics that constantly keep the experience fresh. And that's why the gameplay matters so much. It's not just that the gravity stuff is cool, it's that it makes you feel the scale of space. Every launch, every tiny planet, every weird shift in perspective reminds you how small Mario is in this giant universe. The mechanics aren't separate from this atmosphere. They're actually a huge part of what creates it. Now here's the kicker. The atmosphere is what truly makes this game a league above the rest. Space. The expansive void. The shimmering crystals of light. Mario, floating through all of it, surrounded by nothing and everything at the same time. There are moments in this game where it feels like it's just you and the universe, where the hauntingly beautiful piano chimes in time with the cold, pulsing light of the stars. It creates this feeling of isolation that is so hard to describe, but impossible to ignore. And as a child, this was not a feeling I really understood. Sure, as a 5-year-old playing this game, I'm sure I felt lonely sometimes, but Galaxy was one of the first experiences that let me feel that emotion through something else. Through the world, the music, and the character I was playing as. Even if I only understood it in the smallest way, I began to realize that loneliness was somehow, despite being everything I feared, beautiful. And of course, the game isn't all melancholy. Because you also get moments like this. I'm a bee, baby! Buzz, buzz! Bum, 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 bum. This is the greatest moment of my life. This is the most beautiful song of my life. This is the most beautiful...
And of course in the law, that penguin's name is Reginald.
Today, Bowser, you will meet your fate. I've heard your inquiries, for you ask if death has a face. Fear not, your question has been answered. For death has a face, and it's a me, Mario.
The atmosphere is not one note. The variety of experiences in this game is phenomenal. And I think the best example of how the atmosphere shapes the story is in the Comet Observatory. This is the main hub for Mario and the gang. From here, the player can launch to new galaxies or replay previous levels. And at first, the observatory feels dark, empty, and lonely. You can see it in the visuals, but you can also hear it in the music. The Comet Observatory theme begins as this soft, almost fragile expression of Rosalina's royalty, with quiet plucked strings, a beautiful flute lead, and a calming synth carrying the main melody. It feels elegant but distant, melancholy but peaceful. It sounds like a home that has been left behind. As Mario rescues more of Rosalina's friends and gathers more stars to restore the ship's power, the observatory begins to feel more alive. More characters appear, more lights return to the space, and even the music changes with it. A new version of the theme begins to emphasize Rosalina's royalty even more. As the synth gives way to a fuller arrangement of strings, the song is no longer just beautiful, but it begins to feel warm. And by the time the game reaches its conclusion, the observatory is complete. Mario has restored it to full power, and what once felt cold and abandoned now feels like a true home again. The glowing lights, the bustling space, and the now fully realized royal waltz all reveal that Mario and the player have done more than just repair a ship. They have helped restore to Rosalina the one thing she believed she would never have again: a family. Wow. All that in a kid's game?
Is what I would say if I were an idiot.
Now, obviously, media made for kids can hold themes more meaningful than fart jokes. In fact, I'd argue that the reason great all-ages media sticks with us is because it gives us something deeper to grow into. And that's exactly where we get to the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Now, I know to someone who has never played Super Mario Galaxy, this whole argument might sound a little ridiculous. How could a children's game possibly hold this much thematic weight?
Serious?
But I think that question reveals a much bigger problem with how we talk about kids' media. In his essay titled, "On 3 Ways of Writing for Children," C.S. Lewis writes about the danger of giving children only what adults assume they want. He pushes back against the idea that stories for kids should be written merely to fulfill their fantasies, entertain them with loud excitement, or provide the easiest possible pleasures. He argues that writing for children should not mean writing beneath them. And that idea feels just as relevant now as it did then. Too often, media made for younger audiences is treated as if it has to be simple in order to succeed. Bright colors, constant jokes, fast pacing, and surface-level fun are treated like the entire formula. But what gives great all-ages media its staying power is not just that it entertains children, but that it continues to reveal new meaning as we grow up. And sure, the visual gags and spectacle may be what first pulled us in as kids, but that is rarely why we return to these stories 20 years later. We come back because there was something deeper there all along. An idea, a feeling, a theme that we could not fully articulate yet, but still absorbed. And as we get older, those meanings become clearer. And that's what makes all-ages storytelling work. It doesn't talk down to children. It invites them into ideas they may not fully understand yet and gives them something to wrestle with as they grow. Pixar's Soul is a great example of this. It asks enormous questions about purpose, fulfillment, and what it means to really live, which are honestly questions most adults still don't have answers to. And yet, it presents them with such care, using music, imagery, and tone just as much as dialogue. It trusts that the younger audience can feel the weight of those ideas, even if they cannot fully explain them yet. But unfortunately, a lot of modern animated filmmaking does not seem interested in that kind of trust. More and more, the biggest family films feel built around stimulation first and meaning second. And if there is one studio that has practically turned that formula into a brand, it's Illumination. Illumination movies are often colorful, energetic, and perfectly watchable, but they tend to fall into the dumb fun category. Now, there may be a glimpse of a theme here or there, but it is usually buried beneath frantic pacing, cheap laughs, pop songs, and a constant need to keep the audience stimulated. And that approach is not unique to Illumination alone, but they have become one of the clearest examples of it. So, where does the Super Mario Bros. Movie fit into all of this? Well, it certainly is an Illumination movie. And by that, I don't mean it's bad, but all of the previously mentioned Illumination flair is here. For kids, it gives them exactly what they want: action, color, movement, and recognizable fun. And in a way, it does the same for adults too. Just through nostalgia, familiar melodies, character cameos, and references to the games they grew up with. And none of those elements are inherently bad, especially when you consider the source material. A standard Mario story has never been exactly known for intricate plot or deep characterization. So adapting it into a straightforward A to B adventure makes perfect sense. In that regard, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is pretty much exactly what it needed to be. It's fun, charming, and clearly made by people who had a good time bringing this world to life. But that's also where the tension begins with a Super Mario Galaxy movie. Because Illumination has already established the tone and expectations for Mario, and maybe even Nintendo Animation as a whole, at least for the foreseeable future. That being fun, charming, visually energetic, but ultimately safe. And sure, that's fine. But Super Mario Galaxy is not just fine. It's an incredible artistic feat. It carries more emotional weight than the standard Mario story ever asked for. And that's exactly why I find it so difficult to imagine fitting into the mold Illumination has already created. For many fans, Galaxy wears the crown as the greatest Mario game of all time. And for people like me who grew up with it, it stood out as something more than just another platformer. It felt like art, something beautiful and emotionally rich that even my little Goomba brain could understand. All that to say, Galaxy has a kind of potential that a broad, all-encompassing Mario movie simply doesn't. But how can I be so sure this new movie won't live up to that name? I mean, just watch the trailer, bro. Jokes aside, it looks fun. It looks fine, but it also looks like it's taking broad inspiration from Galaxy and Odyssey at the same time, collaging together elements of both. Because of that, it starts to feel like Galaxy is in the title more because the characters are hopping from world to world than because the film is actually interested in what makes Super Mario Galaxy meaningful in the first place. And that, more than anything, is the problem. I just don't think there was ever a version of this where Illumination made a beautiful, meditative, emotionally ambitious film using the Mario IP. And that honestly sucks, because for years I've hoped to see this game and its more difficult themes taken on by artists and storytellers willing to rise to that challenge, to translate the strange, lonely, beautiful universe that Galaxy created onto the big screen. But maybe that's the real question here. Is the problem that this film won't be true to the source material? Or is it that Super Mario Galaxy simply is not the kind of story that was ever going to fit neatly into a movie at all? While Illumination never truly had the potential to craft an atmosphere as both hauntingly solemn and wackily wonderful as the one present in Super Mario Galaxy, they did offer a brief glimpse of what a real Galaxy film could look like in the first Mario movie. There's actually one scene in particular where the dialogue briefly falls away and the film lets its visuals and sweeping score do the work of building the atmosphere of the Mushroom Kingdom. In a movie so focused on constantly entertaining its audience, a moment like this feels like a deep breath after a sprint. And because of that, I think it stands out. So after all this, I think a conclusion can be reached. A true adaptation of Galaxy would absolutely be a challenge, because it requires rich atmospheric storytelling and a willingness to trust mood, silence, and emotion. But it is not impossible. Even Illumination has shown that, while rare, they are capable of making room for a moment where the ambiance, the visuals, the sound, and the score are allowed to take the lead. So no, this adaptation is not impossible. But I can confidently say that the film we are getting cannot fill those shoes. So what could? What would it actually take to create the ultimate translation of Mario's magnum opus to the big screen? It would require a disregard for the desire to simply please children and their attention spans. It would require a genuine commitment to making a piece of art that holds its themes close rather than spelling them out. It would require subtlety, patience, trust, and most of all, it will require artists who believe in the game and in their own craft enough to let the story sit, breathe, and cup deep through expertly crafted atmospheres, stunning visuals, deliberate sound, and a score that knows when to swell and when to whisper. As I mentioned earlier, I think Pixar's Soul sets a great precedent for this. But other Pixar films like Ratatouille, Up, and WALL-E also understand the power of letting a moment linger. They give the audience space to sit with an idea and ask, how does this make me feel? And from there, those feelings turn into deeper questions. Why do I feel this way? What in my own life makes me connect to this? And most importantly, what does that mean for me? My final two examples are films that understand this better than any. DreamWorks' The Wild Robot follows this formula beautifully. It has so many moments where the landscape, the score, or even a silent reaction from the protagonist says more than pages of dialogue ever could. The artists trust their work. And then there is perhaps the greatest example of all. The films of Hayao Miyazaki and Joe Hisaishi. Some of Studio Ghibli's best moments are not the ones driven by exposition or plot. They are the passing moments. The ones where the scale of a landscape is allowed to speak for itself, where the world is built stroke by stroke, mood is crafted note by note, and the audience is simply asked to sit inside the feeling of it all. Those precious passing moments are what make those films so unforgettable. And that is exactly what Super Mario Galaxy does so masterfully. It lets the viewers watch and the player feel. It allows you to live inside its world for just a moment, and that emotional experience is what stays with you. One day, I hope we get a Galaxy film that truly lives up to that potential. But in the meantime, I hope artists keep making experiences like Galaxy. Films that trust their audience, embrace their quiet beauty, and let their stars speak for themselves. So as I sit here alone, writing this essay, I think back to those moments where it was just me, the stars, and Mario, drifting through that dark and endless universe. And I'm thankful. Thankful that something so simple could make my loneliness feel beautiful. And thankful that after all these years later, it still does. Thank you so much for listening to my first video essay. It was really awesome to make, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, make sure that you leave a like and subscribe to the Cinemajors for more movie content. But more importantly, I want to know your thoughts down in the comments below. Did you agree with me? Did you disagree? Also, let us know if you want to see more video essays like this. Lastly, please make sure you go watch the Super Mario Galaxy movie for yourself and form your own opinion. Thank you so much for watching. Remember, major in goofs, minor in film, and we'll see you next time.